Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. And Happy New Year to all my Chinese listeners and Chinese friends. I hope you're having a great year of the horse and may you have a great, happy celebrations over the next few weeks in this festive period. So, today's subject, I'm going to be talking about this record 9.5 billion trips that's happening in China in this Chinese lunar year, which is an absolute record, guys. I'm also going to be talking about whether this person on the left is Ghislaine Maxwell or whether she's an imposter or whether he's an imposter because it looks like a man. I'm also going to be talking about Seedance's new version, Seedance 2.0. And it looks like this is going to be another DeepSeek moment for the West. And they are producing movie-like quality in minutes rather than, movies that take years or months to create. Well, they are doing it in minutes. And Hollywood is absolutely panicking. I'm also going to be talking about China agreeing zero tariff access for 53 African nations and what that means. And finally, I'm going to talk about the idiot of the day, which is Marco Rubio. And I'm going to be talking about what he did. It's so funny. It's quite ridiculous, actually. So, without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, share, and comment on the video. It helps the algorithm. And if you watch the video to the end, also helps as well. I'll try and keep the video as short as possible. But you know me, when I start talking, it's really hard to shut me up. And yeah, so let's get through this video. And don't forget to also watch some of my other videos from my other channels as well. I want to try and get those monetized again. So China is expecting a record 9.5 billion trips in China in this lunar year. Uh, and let me make something clear. It's not 9.5 billion train trips. These are 9.5 billion trips. That includes train, just ordinary rail, high-speed rail, airplanes, cars. So basically, huge amounts of trips that's happening. So a trip is basically going from one location to another. So one person can make 5 trips in a week or 5 trips in a day, right? So they can go from one place to the next, to the next place, to the next place. They can either take a car, they can either take a train. So this is why it's not 9.5 billion people, it's 9.5 billion trips. And this is a huge record. Every single year, China breaks this record. And the reason they break this record is because Chinese infrastructure is improving year on year. Every single year, there's brand new high speed rail links to new cities, and people can travel faster between cities. And these trains can access remote regions where people could not get out before. Let's just say 50 years ago, let's just say there's a village in a remote mountain and there's no roads, there's no trains. So the people there are pretty much stuck there. So now what China has done, they've built roads, they've built access, they've built train lines near that village. So the people from that village can travel across the rest of China. They can see the rest of China, they can enjoy the rest of China and see the beauty, and they can come back home. So that's what China has done. They've increased infrastructure and they've given access to lots of people to work, to travel, to see friends, and just basically have that freedom to travel around China. And so, what's happened to all of these ridiculous articles? Do you remember those ridiculous articles 5 years ago? They were saying that China's high-speed rail are making a loss. They're not making any money. Do you remember those articles, guys? I remember them. Most of them were coming out of India. And look at what they look. Look at what these Indian papers are still coping. They're still coping, guys. So this is one Indian paper saying China's shiny bullet trains are drowning in debt. Here's how India can dodge the same disaster. Let me remind you, India has no high-speed rail, not even one. They tried to build some high-speed rail with Japanese help, and that's still in the planning stage, apparently. It's taken more than 20, 30 years, losing a lot of money. That's not gone anywhere. So here you have Indians basically coping. They're saying that Chinese trains are drowning in debt and India can avoid the disaster. It is so funny, guys. Hilarious. But Western papers have stopped reporting about, high-speed rail. They've stopped reporting high-speed rail making a loss because it's not true, guys. It's not true. Countries would be absolutely jealous of these numbers. Any country would be jealous of these numbers, guys. Even USA. If USA had these numbers, they would be absolutely celebrating. But again, USA doesn't have high-speed rails, and most of the people that travel take their cars, which is very expensive. If you think about it, the gas prices are so high, and long journeys as well, and plus it's very tiring as well if you drive your car more than 6 hours, 7 hours, because that's how long it takes to go from, let's just say, California to Las Vegas, for example, Los Angeles to Las Vegas. That's an 8 hour trip, or sometimes more, depending how fast you travel, how many stops you take. And yeah, I mean, with China, you can travel the same distance by a high speed rail, and it takes a couple of hours, or maybe even less. And if you look at the pricing, guys, I had a check of the pricing. If you go from Beijing to Shanghai, it costs between $42 and $165 one way from Beijing to Shanghai. And that's the most expensive train in China. All the other high speed rail links are actually cheaper because Beijing to Shanghai is actually one of the fastest trains, and plus it's Beijing and Shanghai. It's these are the two biggest economic cities in China. But other cities, going from other cities, is actually cheaper. And but let's just say average price. If you want to take a high speed rail, the average price, if you want to go from one major city to another, it's about $40 to $50. That is the low end if you take the second class. Um, if you take the second class seats, probably first class seats are much more expensive, like 165. Um, Sometimes there are discounts as well if you travel shorter distances in town in cities that are not as famous as Shanghai and Beijing. Let's just say you want to go from Chongqing to Chengdu, for example. I think it's around $25. Let's just see. Um, Chengdu to Chongqing. Yeah, you can see, look. So the lowest price is $7 and the highest is $120. So $7 is absolutely cheap between Chongqing and Chengdu. It's about 1 hour high-speed rail journeys. So if you average this, guys, let's just say the average cost of a high-speed rail is, let's just put it as an average of $50. Let's just say, well, actually, let's put it down to $20. Let's just say $20. So 20 times 500 million trips. You can imagine, how big that is. 10 times $10 times 500 um $10 times 500 million is 5 billion. And so I'm just trying to give you an idea of how much money, China makes in a day with high speed rail. Huge amounts of money, guys, huge amounts. And it's not about the money in the short term. Everybody seems to think that, oh, Chinese trains are in debt and stuff like that. It's not like that. They are basically looking at the long term. because if you give each city access, you know, high-speed rail access, that city will become, for the future, it will become more economically viable. It will become more developed because people will be traveling to nearby cities. They will be sending deliveries to those cities. Businesses will pop up, and people can do businesses between neighboring cities. And because these cities are going to be opened up to the rest of China, you're going to see huge economic increase or output in these cities. And in the long term, these cities will develop, all these businesses will pop up, skyscrapers will start popping up, and the whole city will develop. So they're looking at the long term value. It's not just the cost of high speed rail. And this is why these high speed rail is actually quite cheap because government subsidizes a lot of the money. If the government didn't subsidize it, then the tickets would be much more expensive. And and yeah, so these cities, which now have access to the rest of China because of the high speed rail links, are now developing. And this is why the rest of China, all the cities like first tier, second tier, third tier, even fourth or fifth tier cities, they're all becoming really, really nice because people and businesses and money goes through these cities as well. And, businesses start, trading with other cities nearby. So that it brings in a lot of economic output and for China, and it's good for China. So they're looking at the long-term benefits. And also, and this is why, every single year there's more and more records being broken. And more people get to travel around China, outside China. They get to go to work in other cities. They go to see their friends. They go to see their family. And this is why China keeps breaking records. Infrastructure is very, very important for a country. While America is spending all its money on wars, China is building on its people, on its country. America, let's just say America spent how much trillions in Iraq and Afghanistan? Some people estimate around 6 trillion, maybe more. And, you know, China has spent 6 trillion building high speed rail. Or it's probably not even going to cost as much as 6 trillion. Probably costs less than 2 trillion, I would say. And they've already built around 50,000 miles of track. And that's going to be an absolute record. I think they're looking to build 70,000 miles of track. I think they've reached the 50,000 miles record recently. 50,000. Yeah, as of late December 2025, Chinese high-speed rail network officially surpassed 50,000 kilometers in operational length. Now, on to our next story, guys. And this story has been going viral all over the internet, all over Twitter and X. So these pictures have been released, and people are saying that the person on the left is who's in jail at the moment, and the person on the right is Ghislaine Maxwell. So the person on the left looks nothing like the person on the right. And people have been analyzing the two pictures. For example, you can see the eye color is different and the nose shape is completely different. The face shape, the shape of the eyes, everything is very, very suspicious, very creepy, guys. I think they probably, I think they probably killed her, uh, or, or it could be they released her, and she's with living somewhere with what's his name, Mr. Epstein, somewhere in Israel or something like that, under new identities. Or they have killed her because she has too much information and they cannot release that kind of information. So they basically got rid of her. And and the other theory is they probably sacrificed her in some sort of ritual and ate her up. But that's a small minority who believe that. But it could be true because these people tend to do these things. But yeah, the person on the left, there's a funny joke going around that the person on the left is supposed to be Mike Myers. So there's a joke going around on the internet that this is Mike Myers in disguise, and you can see from the bottom picture. Do you know who Mike Myers is, guys? He was in Austin Powers. I don't know if you watch Hollywood movies, but there's a movie called Austin Powers, and that's Mike Myers. But not when he was young. I think when he's old. He's quite old now, and he looks just like Maxwell. Let me see if there's a picture of him somewhere. There he is. Look. He does look like her with a little bit of makeup and a bit of a wig, and you can see the resemblance. You can see the resemblance. Well, it's definitely not her, guys. I think they either got rid of her alongside Epstein. If they killed Epstein, then they would have killed her as well. And if they released Epstein, some sort of fake death, they would have released her as well, and they put some sort of imposter in jail impersonating her. I mean, this is the CIA guys. They're capable of anything. I mean, let's just, this is not conspiracy theories. These people, you know, if you're Epstein and you have billions and billions in your bank, you have total control over politicians, musicians, actors, anybody powerful, rich and famous, yeah, whether you're part of the royal family, you have information, you have evidence that can bring the whole world down. So it's most likely that he had some sort of fake death. He probably had made some deal with the government, and they came up with a fake death saying that he died. I think, and I think they've done the same with her as well. There's a lot of pictures circulating that he's in Israel, and it could be he is in Israel. It could be under a new identity, and she could be doing the same. Because I do not believe he did some sort of suicide in his jail. I cannot believe that because the evidence doesn't make any sense. Why was the camera switched off? And there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense, guys. It's obviously a cover up of some sort. But I don't think he's dead either. I think he's far too powerful. He's got far too much money for him to be killed or for him to die. I think uh, I think he's still alive. I think he's some sort of done some sort of fake death. That's just my opinion. I mean, obviously, I don't have any proof, real proof. These are my conspiracy theories, guys. But it could be he's dead, and if he is dead, then I think they would have killed her because she has too much information, and they've just replaced her with some sort of imposter that looks like her. Could even be a man dressed up as a woman. You never know, guys. You never know. Let me know what you guys think. This is just my opinion, guys, but you guys might have a different opinion. So let's talk about Seedance 2.0. This looks like another one of those deep seek moments, and Seedance is absolutely destroying Hollywood at the moment. And I don't know if you've seen some of these videos and clips. Let me show you. You can see it's a really good quality, guys. I mean, it's almost like movie standard. And this is version 2.0. Imagine what they could do with 3.0. And they've already released lots of like movie clips and short movies made with seed dance. And they look absolutely amazing. It's almost like Hollywood level, guys. And they do it in minutes, just with a prompt. And Hollywood is panicking, and you have Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise making statements saying that they're absolutely scared that one day they might be replaced by AI. There won't be any need for actors anymore, or even Hollywood anymore. All the movies can just come out of China. They can just make couple of prompts, and voila, here you go, brand new movie made in minutes rather than taking years or taking days, weeks. They don't have to go through the whole process of making a movie, shooting, editing, creating scripts, doing reshoots. All of that stuff. It takes a lot of time and effort. But if you can do it using Seedance, it's probably not there yet. It's still version 2.0. But imagine 1 year later or 2 years later, when China starts producing advanced chips, nanometers, 1 to 2 nanometers, for example. China produces its own EUV machines, and they're able to churn out all these amazing small nanometer chips. And imagine what the AI would be after that. China would literally take over everything, all the movies. AI would pretty much do everything for them. Um, but yeah, I think West is absolutely scared. Hollywood is scared. Well, it's about time Hollywood falls, guys. I am not a big fan of Hollywood. It's just a propaganda tool. Films like Top Gun, Maverick. I don't know if you guys seen it. It's just a propaganda tool to make people get used to attacking Iran, because that film was obviously about attacking Iran's nuclear sites. And there's a lot of propaganda stuff in there in Hollywood, and it's just a propaganda tool. There's no room for independent filmmakers anymore. If you're independent filmmakers, you just get no shot whatsoever. And all the Hollywood actors, they're all scared. When the Gaza genocide was happening, there's only a few actors that spoke about it. Only a few. One was Mark Ruffalo, the guy who plays Incredible Hulk, and there's only a few other actors, actresses. And the ones that spoke out, they are being replaced. They are being blacklisted all over Hollywood because you said, something about the Gaza genocide. And now they are being blacklisted. And there's talk about Mark Ruffalo being sacked from Disney. They're going to replace Hulk with a different actor. So again, Hollywood is just a bunch of cowards, guys. Bunch of cowards. Entitled cowards. They're all entitled. They all make a lot of money, and they don't seem to do anything good with it. They're not really changing the world or making it better or speaking out against genocides or anything like that. So Hollywood needs to die, to be honest. So this is a really good story, actually. China agrees zero tariff access for 53 African nations. So while Trump is busy tariffing the whole world, including poor countries, China is reducing tariffs, especially with Africa. And there's another article here. It says that China's trade with Africa, it has reached a record 102 billion. So as China and Africa trade more with each other, so with these trade barriers gone, there's going to be more trade happening between China, between Africa. China will not need as much trade from America, because it looks like, China can replace all agricultural goods. They can get it from Brazil, they can get it from Africa now, and African companies will have access to China, and vice versa, and they'll be doing more trade with each other. Africa will become richer because they're doing more trade with China. As they become more richer, they will basically you know, do more trade with each other and buy more things. And that's how countries become rich, basically. The more you trade with each other, the more money you make. And with the extra money, you basically trade more with each other and you invest in each other's countries. And this is how countries grow in the global south. So as Africa becomes richer, most of the money will be going into China, and also Chinese money will be flooding into Africa as well. And everyone knows Africa has, lots of raw materials. They have lots of stuff that China needs, rare earths. They have iron ore. Um, cobalt, and many other stuff that China needs. And Africa, those countries that do trade with China, they will be giving China access to those mines, and they will give China access to the rare earths and stuff because they have a relationship with China. So breaking down trade barriers is actually a great way to build relationships with the global south. And I think Trump has shot himself in the foot by adding all these extra tariffs on African countries, even poor countries. And it's just going to push Africa and China closer to each other. Uh, and again, America's losing a big trick here because when you're a poor country, you get bigger returns when that poor country becomes rich because the GDP growth is so much higher. Um, if you guys know what I mean. So, for example, if a country makes 1 trillion in GDP, for example, $1 trillion, and then they start trading with China. China invests a lot in that country, and they have lots of trade deals with China. That GDP will grow, and it will grow exponentially. It will grow very fast. And that's where most of the growth comes from. It comes from the global south. But when you're like a 3 trillion or $10 trillion economy, the growth is not as big. You might be able to trade with China. China might be able to invest in your countries, but your GDP growth is only going to be very minimal. But with poor countries, the GDP growth is very fast. When you're kind of struggling with your GDP, but with all these trade deals and all these trade barriers gone, your GDP is going to fly up. And this is why, investing in global south countries brings you much better returns than investing in America, for example. If you invest in America, chances are you're not going to get much returns. It's going to be very small, if that. But investing in the global south or poor countries, as they become more and more rich, you'll see your returns are much higher. And this is why China invests in global south countries, because the returns are much better. I've also seen an article from Reuters today saying that, China's been giving a lot of loans to African countries in the past. But now, as Africa is becoming richer, they are paying back China's loans, and also they are paying back these loans in basically the Chinese yuan. And China is actually, all the loans that they've paid to African countries, they're getting all the money back, and they're making more money with interest. And also because it's Chinese yuan, China gives loans in dollars to these African countries, and they get the money back with Chinese yuan, and this is money back these African countries make from trading with China. So as they trade with China, they build up a Chinese yuan reserve, and that's the money they give back to China. So China makes this is one way China gets rid of its dollars. They give the dollars as a loan, and they get the money back using the Chinese yuan. And it's a great way to get rid of the dollar, really. And the Reuters article is saying that China is now starting to make a profit from all these loans they've given to Africa, because Africa is becoming so rich now. And basically they're paying back the money to China plus more. They're giving contracts to China. They're giving infrastructure projects to China. They're giving mining projects to China. So China is actually getting back a lot more than they got. And this is the strategy of China's been doing for 20, 30 years now. Finally, I want to come to the idiot of the day. And the idiot of the day is Mark Rubio. And Mark Rubio was supposed to be in this meeting today talking about Ukraine. And in this meeting, you had all the EU members. You had that lady Callas, and you had all the EU members like the German Chancellor. You had Keir Starmer there. And guess what? Marco Rubio didn't show up. He did a no-show, and it was so funny. And they did a press conference afterwards, and all the European leaders were so angry that Marco Rubio didn't show up, and they were so angry, and even even Kallas, that Estonian woman, usually she's all, she kisses a lot of American ass, basically. Today she was talking about, she was really slamming America. And it's quite funny to watch. And she was saying something like, even in the jungle, animals work together to hunt. That's what she said in her own words. And basically, she's saying that, in the war, Russia's fighting alone against the rest of Europe. But whenever America fights wars, is always asking allies for help. And like they needed allies for Iraq, they needed allies for Afghanistan, things like that. That's what Wallace was saying. And she's saying that, and the German chancellor came up and saying Trump is destroying the world order, rules-based order. Nobody will ever trust America again. And every one of these EU members was so angry that Marco Rubio didn't show up, and absolutely all of them were slamming America. It is just funny to watch, guys. This reminds me of just a few months, or maybe like a few years ago, when Biden was like, "We will stand with the EU, and America's solidarity is stronger than ever. We will stay with Ukraine as long as it takes. We will, all of these promises that Biden made, Trump just breaks it. So Trump just breaks it, guys. And Marco Rubio, I mean, he's just not interested in the EU at all. I think he's focused on maybe South America, on Cuba, Venezuela, because he's an ex-Cuban guy, and I think he's focused on taking down Cuba. I mean, right now they are blockading Cuba. They burnt some sort of refinery yesterday, and there's some sort of blockade going on in Cuba. And Venezuela used to give a lot of oil to Cuba, and they've stopped that now. They've stopped all the Venezuelan oil going into Cuba. So Cuba is having a bit of a crisis at the moment. So this Marco Rubio guy is obviously focused on South America. He's not focused on EU. He's not focused on any parts of the world, to be honest. He's just focused on South America and focused on Israel. That's his two priorities. Everything else can, take a back step. So yeah, that's the idiot of the day, Marco Rubio, and I would probably add the rest of the EU there as well, including Callas. But yeah, that's all for today, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next show. Take care for now, and Happy New Year again.